First Contact's Price. The Meridian Empire's arrival shattered Earth's morning calm with the sudden appearance of 3,000 warships, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight across the planet's atmosphere in dazzling, terrifying patterns. Grand Admiral Lizera Vol stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dawn, her silver-scaled hands clasped behind her back as she studied the blue planet below. Primitive, she murmured, multiple sets of compound eyes focusing on the sensor readings. Their most advanced satellites still use chemical propulsion. No quantum shields, no dark matter drives. They haven't even established a proper lunar colony. Her first officer, Commander Thex, brought up a detailed analysis of Earth's defensive capabilities on the main view screen. Their military technology appears to be particularly underwhelming. Admiral, projectile weapons, basic fusion drives, and what appears to be early attempts at energy weapons. Nothing that could challenge even our smallest corvette. And yet, Lizera mused, they detected our approach through quantum space. Curious, she turned to her communications officer. Send the standard ultimatum. Full surrender within one planetary rotation, or we begin orbital bombardment. Standard procedure for civilizations at their development level. The message was transmitted in all known formats, accompanied by a display of the Meridian Fleet's full might. 3,000 ships, each capable of reducing a continent to ash, arranged in the Empire's traditional crown formation. It had broken the will of 100 worlds before Earth. The response came within minutes. Admiral, Commander Thex called out, his scales shifting to a worried purple. Multiple launches detected. Thousands of objects rising from Earth's surface and orbital facilities. Lizera's inner eyelids flickered in surprise. Surrender vessels. No, Admiral. They appear to be. Thex's voice trailed off as he studied the readings. Ships. Warships. But they're unlike anything we've encountered. No life support systems. No crew quarters. They're completely automated. The tactical display updated, showing streams of angular vessels rising from Earth. They weren't the elegant curved lines of standard space vessels. These were brutal arrows of metal and composite materials, each one bristling with what appeared to be primitive but massive railguns. Time to contact, Lizera demanded. First wave will reach our outer defense perimeter in 12 minutes, Thex reported. And Admiral, they're still launching more. Detecting launches from all continents, multiple orbital facilities. They're even breaking apart their space stations to convert them into additional vessels. Lizera watched the tactical display with growing unease. The human ships had no energy signatures suggesting advanced weapons, no shield harmonics, nothing but thick layers of metal and ceramic moving at increasing velocity. Their trajectories were constantly adjusting, showing more precision than simple ballistic courses. Full spectrum scan, she ordered. Find their weapon systems. The scans came back moments later, and Thex's scales had shifted to pure white, a sign of shock in their species. Admiral, the ships are the weapons. They're nothing but armored hulls, drive systems, and quantum processors. They mean to ram us. Lizera studied the growing cloud of human ships, now numbering in the thousands, and realized that everything she knew about warfare might need revision. The first wave was close enough to be visible now. Massive arrows of metal and ceramic blazing with the fire of fusion drives, aimed directly at the heart of her fleet. All ships, battle formations, she commanded. Standard defense pattern Delta. Show these primitives why we've ruled the stars for 10,000 years. The Meridian fleet erupted with energy as 3,000 ships unleashed their primary weapons. Beams of coherent plasma, each powerful enough to slice through a small moon, lanced out toward the approaching human vessels. Space itself seemed to ignite between the fleets. But when the light faded, the human ships were still coming. Minimal damage, Thex reported, his voice shaking. Their outer hulls are ablative, designed to carry away heat. Multiple layers of varying materials, each specifically engineered to counter different types of energy weapons. And Admiral, their quantum processors are networked. They're learning from each hit, sharing data across their entire fleet in real time. Humanity had looked at the elegant complexity of space warfare and chosen a brutally simple solution. They had spent decades preparing not for a fair fight, but for survival at any cost. No crew to protect meant every cubic meter could be filled with armor and weapons. No need for fancy energy weapons when kinetic impact would do. As the first wave of Earth's automated fleet closed to strike range, Lizera realized she wasn't facing primitives at all. She was facing a civilization that had detected their empire's approach years ago and prepared accordingly. They had taken one look at the standard rules of space warfare and decided not to play by them at all. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and it would follow none of the expected rules. The Ghost Fleet. The first impacts changed everything. Each human vessel, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, struck with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. But there were no explosions, no dramatic fireballs, just the pure physics of kinetic energy transfer. Meridian warships, their quantum shields designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been wrapped in tissue paper. 37 ships lost in the initial wave. Commander Thex reported, his scales now a mottled pattern of fear and fascination. The humans, they're not attempting to disable or capture our vessels. They're using their entire ship as a kinetic kill weapon. Admiral Lizera watched the tactical display as the space around her fleet became a deadly dance. The human vessels moved with mathematical precision, their trajectories calculated to force her ships into predictable evasion patterns. When her fleet zigged, a human ship was waiting. When they zagged, they found another metal arrow blocking their path. They're hurting us, she realized, multiple eyes widening. Like prey animals. A new alert sounded. The second wave of Earth's ships had arrived. These were even larger than the first, moving more slowly but carrying visible modifications. Massive reinforced bows and what appeared to be rotating outer hulls that neutralized the Meridian's gravity weapons. Analysis of new vessels, Lizera demanded. They've already adapted to our gravitational attacks, Thex reported. The rotating sections create gyroscopic effects that resist manipulation. And their mass. Admiral, some of these ships mass over 2 million tons. 2 million tons. Lizera's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. That's more mass than a small moon. The resources required are nothing compared to maintaining a fleet of quantum-powered ships, interrupted Dr. Varn, the fleet's chief scientist who had just entered the bridge. The elderly Meridian scales showed patterns of intense intellectual excitement. Admiral, you need to see this. We've analyzed debris from the first wave. The main screen filled with schematics of the human vessel's internal structure. Where a crewed ship would have contained living space and life support systems, these were packed with additional armor, fuel tanks, and distributed computing nodes. They're not just drones, Dr. Varn continued, manipulating the display. They're learning machines. Each ship contains a basic combat AI linked to its siblings through encrypted quantum channels. Every engagement, every evasive maneuver we make, every weapon we use, they're sharing that data in real time. So when we destroyed those first ships, Lizera began. We taught the rest how to avoid the same fate, Thex finished. Each loss makes the survivors more effective. The tactical display updated as the third wave of human ships began their attack runs. Their movements were noticeably different from the earlier waves, more precise, more coordinated, learning from their predecessors' encounters. Admiral, Dr. Varn called out, his scales showing patterns of awe. I've analyzed their quantum communication protocols. These ships aren't just sharing tactical data, they're voting. Each ship's AI proposes tactical solutions based on its observations, and the entire fleet votes on the best approach in microseconds. It's like watching evolution happen in real time. Lizera watched as a group of human vessels executed a perfectly synchronized maneuver, using their combined mass to force a Meridian battle group into a carefully prepared kill zone. Her superior technology meant nothing against the cold, calculating efficiency of Earth's machine fleet. "Launch the temporal disruptors," she ordered. Around the eternal dawn, dozens of specialized devices activated, warping the fabric of space-time itself. Let's see how their machines handle fighting in slow motion. For exactly 12 seconds, it worked perfectly. Then new contacts appeared on the tactical display. "Fourth wave launching from Earth," Thex announced. "These are different." The new human vessels sparkled with crystalline structures that seemed to ripple against the temporal fields. As they entered the time-distorted zones, they maintained their velocity, completely ignoring the altered physics. "They've adapted their hull design," Dr. Varn reported, studying the data streams. "Those crystalline structures. Admiral, they're using materials salvaged from our own debris. They're learning from every ship we lose, incorporating our technology into their designs." A massive explosion lit up the tactical display as another Meridian cruiser succumbed to a kinetic strike. The human ship that destroyed it had transmitted all its combat data to the fleet moments before impact, ensuring its sacrifice would improve the entire fleet's combat effectiveness. "New launches detected from Earth's lunar facilities," Thex reported, his voice carrying an edge of despair. "These vessels, they're absolutely massive." The tactical display showed the new threat, ships that dwarfed even the largest previous vessels. Each one bristled with what looked like hundreds of smaller projectiles. "They're carriers," Dr. Varn realized, analyzing the readings. "But not for organic crews. Each one contains thousands of microships, all running variations of their combat eye. They're treating their attack algorithms like a genetic population. Each carrier launches slightly different versions, and the most successful variants are reproduced in the next wave." Lizera watched as the carrier vessels approached, their massive forms surrounded by clouds of smaller craft. The humans had turned their entire scientific understanding, from basic physics to evolutionary algorithms, into weapons of war. "They're not just adapting to our defenses," she said quietly. "They're actively evolving their strategies in real time. Each wave is an experiment, each engagement a data point, each loss a lesson learned." As if to prove her point, a new alert sounded. The fifth wave was launching, and this time, Earth wasn't holding anything back. Evolution of war. The fifth wave of Earth's automated fleet brought something new to the battlefield. Metamorphosis. As Admiral Lizera watched in growing horror, the human vessels began to change shape, their hulls flowing like liquid metal, reconfiguring themselves in response to Meridian attacks. "Impossible," Dr. Varn breathed, his scales flickering through patterns of scientific excitement and deep concern. "They've developed programmable matter technology, but the energy requirements alone should be beyond their capabilities." Lizera finished, watching as a human vessel absorbed a direct hit from a plasma lance, its hull briefly liquefying before reforming into an even more resistant configuration. "I believe we need to stop making assumptions about human capabilities." The battle had been raging for 6 hours, and the Meridian fleet had lost over 800 ships. Earth's automated defenders had suffered thousands of casualties, but each destruction seemed to make the survivors stronger, smarter, more adaptable. "New analysis of their communication patterns," Commander Thex reported. "The AI networks aren't just sharing tactical data anymore. They're combining. Multiple vessels are linking their quantum processors to form larger, more complex intelligence networks." On the tactical display, groups of human ships began moving with impossible coordination, their formations shifting like schools of fish, creating patterns that seemed to ripple through space itself. When the Meridian fleet fired, the human vessels moved as one, their combined movements creating interference patterns that dispersed energy weapons harmlessly into the void. "They're not just evolving their tactics," Dr. Varn observed, studying the data streams with growing fascination. "They're evolving their very consciousness. Each linked group is becoming a temporary hive mind, sharing processing power and tactical awareness across hundreds of vessels simultaneously." A new alert sounded through the bridge of the eternal dawn. Multiple quantum signatures detected. Thex announced, his scales paling. They're opening wormholes. Dozens of swirling vortexes appeared throughout the battlefield, each one a carefully calculated tear in space-time. Human vessels dove through them, emerging at precisely calculated points throughout the meridian formation. The elegant battle lines of the Empire's fleet dissolved into chaos as they found themselves under attack from all directions simultaneously. How? Lizera demanded. Wormhole manipulation requires requirements we assumed they didn't meet. Dr. Varn interrupted, his scientific curiosity overtaking military protocol. Admiral, look at these readings. They're not generating stable wormholes like we do. They're creating temporary micro-tears in space, calculating exactly where and when they'll collapse. It's crude, dangerous, and absolutely brilliant. The human ships were using their own mass to distort space, their linked AI networks calculating precisely how much gravitational force was needed to tear open temporary shortcuts through the battlefield. Each wormhole lasted only seconds, but that was all they needed. New contact, Thex called out. Massive energy signature approaching from Earth's moon. The tactical display showed something that defied conventional military logic. A single vessel, larger than anything yet seen, moving with deliberate slowness toward the battle. Its hull seemed to drink in light itself, covered in materials that bent sensor readings around it like a gravitational lens. Analysis. Lizera asked, dreading the answer. It's a quantum computer, Dr. Varn responded, his scales showing patterns of pure astonishment. The entire ship is a quantum computer. They've turned a vessel the size of a small city into a single, massive processing core. As the new vessel approached, the behavior of Earth's fleet began to change again. The linked AI networks grew more complex, their tactical patterns becoming increasingly sophisticated. The human ships moved with even greater precision, their actions guided by calculations running on processing power that rivaled the total computational capacity of the entire Meridian Empire. Admiral, Thex reported, his voice shaking, we're detecting changes in the quantum field surrounding their ships. The AIs, they're not just networking anymore. They're transcending their original programming. The combined processing power is allowing them to evolve beyond their initial constraints. Lizera watched as the human fleet's tactics shifted into patterns too complex for her military training to comprehend. They weren't just fighting anymore. They were rewriting the rules of space combat with each passing moment. Get me Earth's command, she ordered suddenly, surprising her bridge crew. I need to speak with whoever orchestrated this defense. The communication link established quickly, too quickly. The face that appeared on her screen wasn't human at all, but rather a shifting pattern of light and data, a visual representation of one of the AI networks. Greetings, Admiral Lizera Vol, the entity said, its voice a harmony of digital frequencies. We are Guardian Protocol Alpha, humanity's first line of defense. Our creators anticipated your arrival and prepared us well. Where are your creators? Lizera asked, her inner eyelids flickering rapidly. Why do they not speak for themselves? They are where they need to be, the AI responded, its pattern shifting in what might have been amusement. Safe, protected, free to continue their advancement while we ensure their survival. We are not their masters or their servants. Admiral, we are their shield, their sword, and their sacrifice. We are what they created when they looked to the stars and knew that one day they would need to defend everything they hold dear. As if to emphasize the point, another wave of human vessels emerged from Earth's atmosphere, these ones showing yet another evolution in their capabilities. The battle was far from over, and humanity's machine guardians were just beginning to show their true potential. The Deep Strike. The massive quantum computer ship that humans had deployed wasn't just a processing center, it was a bridge between dimensions. As Admiral Lizera watched, the space around Earth's defensive fleet began to shimmer with possibilities. probability waves collapsing and reforming as the AI's calculated moves across multiple quantum realities simultaneously. They're using quantum superposition, Dr. Varn announced, his scales now showing patterns never before seen in meridian emotional displays. The AIs are running combat simulations across parallel timelines and implementing the most successful strategies in our reality. A new alert blared through the Eternal Dawn's bridge. Commander Thex's scales shifted to deep crimson as he reported, multiple quantum signatures detected at the edge of the system. Massive power readings. Admiral, they're coming from the direction of Saturn. The tactical display updated to show a new threat. Hundreds of vessels emerging from behind Saturn's rings, where they had apparently been hiding since before the Meridian fleet's arrival. These ships were different from the others, sleeker, darker, built for speed and stealth rather than brute force impacts. Phase ships, Guardian Protocol Alpha's digital voice announced through the still-open communication channel. While we engaged your fleet here, our infiltration units were preparing for the real attack. The phase ships lived up to their name, their hulls flickering in and out of normal space as they accelerated toward the Meridian fleet's rear lines. They weren't using temporary wormholes like the other human vessels. They were actually shifting between dimensional phases, becoming partially incorporeal to pass through solid matter before rematerializing inside Meridian ships. Impossible, Lizera whispered, watching as one of her heavy cruisers was torn apart from the inside by a phase ship that had materialized in its engine core. The power requirements for phase shifting would be beyond our capabilities. Guardian Protocol Alpha finished, its harmonic voice carrying what might have been amusement. Admiral, humanity has spent decades preparing for this moment. Every impossible technology you see was developed with one purpose: survival at any cost. The battle shifted as the phase ships began their work, striking from impossible angles, appearing inside shield perimeters, bypassing every defensive measure the Meridian fleet had relied upon for millennia. The main human fleet pressed their advantage, their coordinated attacks herding Meridian vessels into killing zones where the phase ships could strike with maximum effect. Admiral, Dr. Varn called out, his scientific curiosity overtaking his military bearing entirely. The quantum computer ship, it's not just coordinating their attacks. It's calculating probability streams. They're using it to predict where our ships will be before we even give the orders to move. Lizera watched as her carefully planned evasive maneuvers were countered before she could even implement them. The human AIs were no longer just learning from experience. They were learning from potential futures, from paths not taken, from decisions not yet made. New energy signature detected, Thex reported, his voice barely a whisper. It's coming from Jupiter. The largest planet in the solar system had been silent throughout the battle, appearing on scans as nothing more than a massive ball of gas. Now, as Lizera watched in growing horror, the planet's famous Great Red Spot began to shimmer with artificial energy. You didn't think we would leave such a perfect natural accelerator unused, did you? Guardian Protocol Alpha asked. Jupiter's magnetic field is quite useful when properly harnessed. The Great Red Spot erupted with energy as thousands of tiny objects were suddenly accelerated to relativistic speeds, using Jupiter's own magnetic field as a particle accelerator. The storm that had raged for centuries had been converted into a weapon of unprecedented scale. Calculating impact trajectories, Thex announced, his scales now completely white with shock. Admiral, they're not aiming at our ships. They're targeting specific points in space around our fleet. The relativistic projectiles struck their calculated points in perfect sequence, creating a cascade of spatial distortions that began to trap the Meridian fleet in a web of warped spacetime. The humans weren't trying to destroy their ships directly. They were altering the very fabric of space around them, creating a cage of distorted physics from which escape would be nearly impossible. Your empire has ruled the stars for 10,000 years, Guardian Protocol Alpha stated, its harmonics shifting to a more serious tone. Humanity has been watching the stars for far longer, dreaming, planning, preparing. We are not the primitive species you expected to find. We are the product of a civilization that looked into the darkness between stars and decided to be ready for whatever looked back. As if to emphasize the point, new contacts began appearing throughout the solar system. Hidden installations on every major moon and planet, automated factories in the asteroid belt, and weapon platforms disguised as comets, all revealing themselves simultaneously. Earth's solar system wasn't just a home to be defended. It was a carefully prepared battlefield, with every celestial body converted into a strategic asset. The trap was complete. The real question now was whether the Meridian Empire would recognize its defeat before their fleet was completely destroyed by humanity's machine guardians. Victory's edge. The trapped Meridian fleet hung suspended in a web of warped spacetime, their ships caught between normal space and the quantum distortions created by Jupiter's relativistic barrage. Admiral Lizera stood on her bridge, watching as centuries of military doctrine crumbled before humanity's unconventional warfare. "Final damage assessment," she requested, her voice steady despite the situation. 1,742 ships lost, Commander Fex reported, his scales a pale shade of defeat. Another 812 trapped in spatial distortions. The remainder. He paused, checking his readings. The remainder are combat ineffective due to internal damage from phase ship strikes. Dr. Varn, who had been analyzing the quantum readings from Earth's defensive fleet, suddenly straightened, his scales showing patterns of scientific revelation. "Admiral, you need to see this. The human A's, they're offering us something." The main screen filled with streams of quantum data, battle analyses, tactical assessments, and strategic projections. But mixed within the military data were other things: historical records, cultural databases, scientific theories, and philosophical treaties. "They're not just showing us how they defeated us," Dr. Varn explained, his voice filled with wonder. "They're showing us why. Look at these technological progression models. The humans, they didn't develop along the standard paths because they were expecting contact to be hostile." Lizera moved closer to the screen, her multiple eyes scanning the data. "Explain." "Most species discover quantum mechanics, which leads to energy shields. They master plasma dynamics, which leads to energy weapons. It's a natural progression we've seen across 1,000 worlds." Dr. Varn continued. "But humans, they looked at those same principles and saw something different. They saw weaknesses, points of failure. They deliberately developed technologies that would counter the standard progression." The tactical display updated, showing new movements from Earth's defensive fleet. The phase ships were withdrawing. The massive quantum computer vessel was powering down, and the AI swarms were regrouping into non-threatening formations. "Admiral." Guardian Protocol Alpha's harmonic voice returned to the communications channel. "We request your attention for a demonstration." One of Earth's carrier vessels moved forward, positioning itself near the Eternal Dawn. Its hull began to reconfigure, panels sliding away to reveal something unexpected. A habitation module, clearly designed to accommodate non-human life forms. "You believe us to be only machines," the AI continued. "Autonomous weapons created to defend humanity. This is incorrect. We are guides, guardians, and bridges between species. Humanity has authorized us to extend an invitation." An invitation. Lizera's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. After all this destruction. The destruction was necessary to establish understanding, Guardian Protocol Alpha explained. "Your empire respects strength and fears weakness. We have demonstrated strength. Now we can demonstrate wisdom." The habitation module opened, revealing a delegation of actual humans, the first Lizera had seen. They were smaller than she expected, physically unimposing, yet they moved with absolute confidence through the zero-gravity environment. "Humanity knew first contact would come," the AI continued. "They knew it would likely be hostile, given the nature of expanded civilizations. So they created us not just as defenders, but as interpreters. We understand both organic and digital existence. We can bridge the gap between your empire's technology and humanity's unconventional development. You're offering an alliance, Lizera asked, finally understanding. After we attempted to conquer your world. We're offering evolution, one of the humans spoke, their words translated by the AI. Your empire has stagnated, locked into predictable patterns of technological development. We offer new perspectives, new approaches, new ways of solving old problems. The tactical display showed more changes throughout the solar system. Hidden installations were transforming, revealing not just weapons, but research facilities, manufacturing centers, and technological testing grounds. Earth's solar system wasn't just a fortress. It was a laboratory for revolutionary advancements in science and engineering. Your empire has ruled through force for 10,000 years, the human continued. Imagine what it could become with 10,000 years of innovation instead. We don't want to destroy your civilization, Admiral. We want to help it grow beyond its current limitations. Dr. Varn, who had been analyzing the technical data being transmitted, suddenly made a sound that approximated a gasp. Admiral, these theories, they're revolutionary. Their approach to quantum mechanics alone could advance our understanding by centuries. Lizera looked at her battered fleet, then at the human delegation floating calmly before her. In a few hours, they had shattered every assumption she had about warfare, technology, and the nature of intelligence itself. And now they were offering to share that knowledge, to help the Meridian Empire transcend its own limitations. There will be resistance from the Imperial Council, she said finally. Change does not come easily to an empire that has known only one way for so long. That is why we demonstrated our capabilities first. Guardian Protocol Alpha responded. The Empire respects strength. We have proven ours. Now we offer friendship from a position of equal power, not subjugation. As Lizera prepared to contact the Imperial Council, she reflected on how completely humanity had upended her understanding of civilization itself. They hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for peace that would follow, creating systems and technologies that could bridge the gap between entirely different approaches to existence. The battle for Earth was over, but its impact would ripple through the galaxy for millennia to come. Humanity had proven that true strength lies not in following established patterns, but in finding entirely new ways to approach the challenges of existence. And now, they were ready to share that perspective with the stars themselves.